Well, it's the end of another No Nut November. And just in time, because I have been really missing the taste of peanut butter. And there'll be time for that afterwards. It's kind of an interesting thing, as I don't have to worry about that challenge anymore, because there's no nuts to worry about. I'm nut free. That's always the big thing. It's always no Nut November. What would be the female equivalent of nutting? I feel like there has to be some sort of term out there. But even more so than that, you'll notice that it seems to be a very male-oriented challenge, I guess. It's hard to really call it a holiday, as it's not really a celebration, as it is more a test of chastity. And it's a rather interesting perspective I have, is before, such emotions were very overpowering, and in my opinion, they were very disgusting. But I'm not sure if it's because now that I'm older that I've come to accept these sort of feelings, or maybe I just feel less disturbed by it because now I know I'm a lesbian and I'm also a woman that admires women. But it's kind of nice. It feels like if I want to, I can just turn it off. It's like, oh, well, let me just distract myself with something else. Yeah, okay. Feelings gone. Well, before it was just like a constant thirst. And I know there's some people that like that feeling. I hated it. Although I will say that in addition to it being less powerful, sometimes, the feeling in general is a lot different now as a woman. It's more like a whole body experience. I feel like saying more than that would probably have to make this video go up to the 18 plus rating, so I'll just simply leave it at that. But since we are talking about this more, shall we say, nutty experience, it was a rather fascinating thing, as this month I was having a conversation with a few guy friends, and I find it weird that one of the things we ended up talking about was girls. And it's still weird that now that I am a girl, I feel like I'm much better at guy talk. Either that, or, as I mentioned before, feel less disgusting about feeling that particular attraction. But also, maybe it's because now I am feeling that attraction. I mean, I never really felt any sort of romantic connection up until the later stages of college. And in terms of sexual attraction, I still don't think I've ever run into that. But I could definitely say that I have aesthetic attraction. There's a certain look that I like. And I don't know if it's very much a generational thing, but I do love a good goth look. Perhaps maybe something along the lines of the manic pixie dream girl, stuff like that. I find people that are generally about my same age also have a love for that particular look, like heavy eyeshadow, black lipstick, wearing black, maybe even dyeing your hair a very dark color, and of course, black nail polish. Most of which I do not really have the bravery for, but, well, maybe it would look alright. One of these days I would like to see what I would look like with black hair. I've worn the blonde wig several times, and I don't know. I'm not really much of a blonde person, both on me or on other people. Of course, I say that, but the first person I ever had romantic attraction to was blonde. So, I guess it really just depends. And just getting done with Thanksgiving, of course, gotta talk about that holiday. I find it rather sad that there's a lot of people that make these videos like how to survive the holidays when you're trans. Really puts it into perspective how well I've got it. And I hope I'm saying this in such a way that I'm not trying to show off, but for the most part. I mean, a few family members might trip on the pronouns or name, but they all know that I'm trans, that I am a girl, so that makes things real easy. But there was one guest that came up that I had not seen in, gosh, maybe like 8 and 9 years or so. And it's kind of annoying to me because I kind of thought I'd be unrecognizable at this point. I mean, I don't recognize myself. But yet, no, this guest that showed up was just like, oh, hey there, dead name. I quickly told them that I was transitioning, this was my new name and pronouns, so there wasn't really any awkwardness with that, but it was just the idea of like, really? I feel like I look like a completely different person, but yet you can still remember what I look like from all that time ago? So there is just one last thing to mention. There's another manga that I discovered and read through to the end of this month. In the grand scheme of things, it was a pretty short one, at least compared to the juggernaut of Wandering Sun. Let's get into this review. Probably the first thing to mention is I don't have any chance of being able to pronounce this title properly, so I'm just gonna type it in here. It was a rather fascinating story as to how I even found this manga, actually, as, well, the reviewer was giving it quite a ripping, but yet the whole time they were describing it, I'm like, okay, this story seems interesting. We get a different perspective, we get a rather different trans character, and I want to know more. So, I read through it. So you may be wondering, what's the story? The main character is Hime, and her best friend Akira, who also came out as trans. I'm reminded a lot of that famous Dr. Doofenshmirtz line, if I had a nickel for every time I read a trans-related manga that had a character named Akira, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't really a lot, but I'm surprised that happened more than once. And maybe this is just a bit of my fan fiction side of me, but I don't know. I get the feeling that both of these characters would have a lot to say. So while Akira's father is not very accepting of her transition, he does give her the ability to wear the girl's uniform for high school, minusing the fact that Akira is not allowed to grow her hair out. As expected, Akira is made fun of, given a lot of slurs, which, well, I feel like it's something to be expected at this point. And this gets into one of the first major criticisms that this reviewer had, is that Hime is basically Akira's knight in shining armor. She basically threatens to beat up anybody that so much as gives her an odd look every so often. And the criticism, I guess, is the idea of Hime being a little too heavy-handed. Well, this is something that should be more slowly accepted. But I'm not gonna lie, there is a part of me that sees some of my supporters in a very similar light, in the idea that if anybody were to make fun of me or whatnot, it's just like, you say that again, I know where you live. Which, I don't know, to me, I found that to be rather assuring. I felt safe around my allies. I didn't have to worry about such things. Rather than the idea of being alienated, which, I don't know. I guess I just kind of took it as the idea that I was alienated to begin with, so if I had somebody that would alienate me for the sake that nobody wanted to come in contact with me because they were scared of my supporters rather than they were scared of me, it seemed like the better alternative. But even more so than that, personally, I think it is very good to be able to have Hime be like a super supportive character, as I feel like this manga is very much written for an ally that may or may not be a little too heavy-handed. you know, kind of the one that's like, hey everybody, look at my trans friend. There's nothing weird about her. She's just wearing a dress like all the other normal women out there. Stuff like that. That's not how you be a supporter. And that is definitely one of the things that I admire this manga for, to kind of show, hey, you know, right way and a wrong way to do this. And that leads into one of the second criticisms of the manga, is that at times it can be a little preachy. But like I say, I'm kind of taking this from the perspective of this is an ally reading this, trying to figure out how to be the best ally that they can be. So whenever they kind of stop the story a little bit, I feel it's more written for the reader, just as much as it's written for the characters learning these lessons. One of the big things I love about this manga is, obviously, the main thing that drew me to this manga in the first place is the character of Akira. This seems weird to say, but I like the idea that she is very masculine presenting, as we see not so much by choice, but I kind of like it. I feel like not everybody passes, and myself included, unfortunately. And this is kind of a way of being able to get that message out of, oh, you're a valid woman regardless of how you look. But it's not done in such a way like that overly supportive friend that's just like, you're valid. I always think back to this one meme format where basically you see this one person drowning, you just only have a hand above the water, and then it's an ally coming in to reach for the hand, and then the caption says, you're valid, just gives the other hand a high five, and then the hand just plunges and all you just see is bubbles. Yes, having validity can be nice, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't do anything. And that is what I like about how this manga handles it. It is a very delicate balance, and even more impressive is I like how the character of Akira is written as a woman with, unfortunately, a very masculine presentation. I feel like in other types of media, they would have just made Akira flamingly gay, so instead she would just be like, hey girlfriend, as opposed to just being an actual girl. I have absolutely no idea how to describe this, but if you do, I would be very curious to hear your explanation of it. Well, I was singing the praises about the way Akira is portrayed in a feminine way rather than a masculinely feminine way. There is just one criticism I have. It's these last panels towards the end. I'm still trying to grapple as to why this just rubs me the wrong way. It gets to a point where Akira is like very secure in her femininity, even though her body is the exact opposite of that. There's just something about these panels. It feels very invalidating? I feel like that's not even right. Maybe it's like in the same category as the people that say, you're valid, I see you as a woman. Okay, well, for the first while that I was transitioning, I didn't care if you saw me as a woman. I wanted to see myself as a woman. And maybe there's just a bit of jealousy in there. The idea that Akira was able to see herself as a woman in a man's body. But then again, I mean, even if I go back to my early trans videos, I still had that feminine confidence, so much so that I can't even watch those first few videos I did. Like, it's really just a reminder of how much uglier he used to be. But if, once again, this is another thing that if you can somehow put into words why this might come off a little invalidating, I'd be very curious to hear your interpretation of it. Before trying to jump into this manga yourself, there is one major caveat that I want to throw out there as well. So, in addition to Hime being maybe a little too aggressive in being an ally for Akira, she is also very much in love with her. So, as such, it feels like there's a good section of the story where she's surrendering herself to better appeal to Akira. So, for instance, people were making fun of Akira for wearing the girl's uniform. So, she started wearing the boy's uniform. Akira loved long hair, and so she would keep it long. So, in addition to her trying to surrender herself to be more appealing to Akira, there is this section where she wants to appear more masculine. When we get, in my opinion, the best character of the manga, Hiro, to come in and try to sort things out. Now, there's a lot of people I've heard that see Hiro as just trying to suppress Hime's natural masculine urges, as if she's trans mask. But, like I say, I very much am under the belief that Hime was just kind of throwing herself away for the sake of Akira. And it's really Hiro that really helps guide Hime into being the person that she wants to be, not the girl that Akira wants her to be. And besides, it's later revealed that Akira is straight anyway, so maybe that's kind of where the crossover is, where people see Hime as being a suppressed trans mask character rather than just a female character that doesn't know themselves, but well, like any form of art, I guess it's open to interpretation, so after you read it, what are your thoughts on it? So, on the whole, I very much enjoyed this manga, but just know that there's obviously going to be a few issues with it. Probably the only other issue to mention is I was a little excited when I heard that it was a Yuri manga with a trans character in it. So part of me was kind of hoping that, well, Akira and Hime were already dating when Akira came out as trans, so then they became a Yuri couple, but, well, there are Yuri elements. I feel like the big Yuri relationship isn't really happening until the end of the story. But, yeah, give it a read, see what you like, put your thoughts down below. And hey, if you know of any manga that has a premise of what I just described, I want to read it. So that's about all I've got for this month. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about that is not politically related? I am all ears. Until next time, be yourself, no matter who that is.